Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Queerness Diaries. I'm very excited that it's already been 1 year since I started the podcast. And I'm even more excited because I've got a very special guest today joining me, Debbie Cannon. And we're going to be talking about a whole host of stuff today. But I know, Debbie, you've got a really fantastic diary that you're going to allow us into. And so having you on the podcast is such a joy because we've connected already on LinkedIn and spoke before, but I'm really excited to have you on the podcast today. So welcome.
Thank you so much. It's a huge honor, Connor. I've watched a few episodes, and the one with Magda specifically struck a chord, obviously with another trans woman. So really excited to broadcasting to you live from St James's Park in Newcastle.
Yeah, I love that background. It's super cool, and I think
I'm a proud Geordie.
Yeah, I think having the podcast, it's been such a fantastic way. We were just talking before we started recording about the importance of community and how we always find each other, and especially in these times in the world, there's been a lot of uncertainty, but we always find a way in community to find each other, root for each other, and champion each other. And I think it's just so important, isn't it?
It absolutely is. I think looking at how difficult things are becoming, literally across the water, where I'm on about, for the LGBTQIA community, I think it's important now more than ever for us to build each other up and support each other. I mean, I've always been one that's kind of championed my community, but I think I'm going out my way to do even more so now, just because of how rubbish it is out there. I won't swear.
Yeah, it's like we can all be that light that we need to see in others during this time. And, I think finding those connections is just so important for our mental health. And you never know how your story and journey can impact other people and really resonate with them. And really excited today to delve into your diary. So what we're going to do is kind of go back, starting from, if you imagine, we're starting your diary, chapter 1, page 1. Where does it begin for you?
Okay. It's really random because I had a conversation with my mum pre-transition about this. My first memory is lying at the bottom of a bed, looking up and seeing a light shade above me and the curtains to the left of me, but the bed was there.
Yeah.
And I had this conversation with my mum and she's like, what? And I told her again, she goes, you can't remember that you were 6 weeks old.
Yeah.
And I'd never heard anyone talking about that. So really random. But I was born in Carlisle. My mum and dad moved to North Shields, hence the Geordie accent when I was 2 weeks old. My mum had a bit of a fallout with my dad's parents and how overbearing they were. And she's like, I'm going home. I've had enough.
Yeah.
She was a Geordie as well. So I grew up in the northeast of England. Eldest of 3 siblings. And difficult childhood, if I'm honest with you. Always realized I was different and recognized that. And I've done a lot of work since I've grown up and transitioned to heal my inner child. And I think that I've recognized through that work that I was treated differently. And I've tried to reconcile why was that. And I think it literally was because I was different. Like as soon as I recognized what being male and female was, I aligned with being female and wanted to be female. And role plays, whatever you want to call it, like when I was young, was always geared towards female identities and stuff. And then once I was chastised by my dad for that and made fun of, he would call me female derivatives, my old name, amongst other things. And it just I started the internalized shame and hiding my identity and who I was, because I knew that it wasn't what I was supposed to do, even though it's what I felt internally. So young years, struggling a lot with confusion over why I couldn't present and do the things that I wanted to do that aligned with who I was internally.
Yeah, for sure. And I think something we can all remember is that first experience of sort of shame or rejection, even if it's just a very passing comment or something from someone else, it sticks with us. And it's something that we will often repeat in our mind and have to deal with and solve much later. And sometimes, whether it's a parent, a family member, whoever it is that's said something they won't remember at all, but it's just a passing comment can sometimes have such a big impact on it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm training to be a therapist, as we've had in the conversation just before we started the recording here. And when I did hypnotherapy for year one, we talk about in hypnosis, there's an initial sensitizing event that
Yeah.
triggers like a phobia or a fear. And I think it's probably the same in these kind of instances where you have an initial comment or something said to you, and it just, for whatever reason, triggers you. And then
Yeah.
it's like an onion, is it? Just builds up and builds up and builds up and builds up and builds up until you've got these multiple layers of all this thing. And when as we grow up and we reach puberty and teenage years, and we have disproportionate responses, and people
Yeah.
are like, "What's your problem?" It's like it's all
Yeah.
these instances that are built up over a massive period of time, and
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah, 100%. And at some point we do reach that age where everything goes from we're just navigating it to fears are being associated, the risk of shame and social shaming and all those
Mm,
things. And it's like we start to, everyone at some level, masking to some point to protect ourselves in situations. And I know for a lot of us in the queer community, our adult lives are then kind of unpacking that and peeling back the layers that were always there, but at some point we became fearful of showing, and at some point we hid
yeah,
that part of us that we had to dim that light just a little bit for acceptance from someone else. And it's a journey for all of us, I think we all remember that first comment and we all find again eventually that light, but that period, when we're crossing from very young age into those teen years, there's a lot of experiences that they seem at the time just like small events, but they're so significant to our
mm.
story.
I remember as well, like, and I've never shared this in any of the stuff that I've done in recordings with other people on podcasts or even on my own YouTube channel. I remember one occasion where I was playing with my then best friend. He lived in the same street as me, and he had a younger sister, and I was there with my sister and my little brother, and we're doing dress up, like modeling, like
Yeah,
wearing those clothes and stuff, and like I was in my element. I was loving it. I was camp then as I am now.
yeah,
And I just remember like his mom picking up the phone and she said, "Oh, your dad's coming." Like racing upstairs, like taking all the
yeah,
stuff off, putting my boy clothes on, running downstairs. And as I was running downstairs, he came into the door and it's like, "What you been doing?" I was like, "Nothing, nothing." And I just
yeah,
remember that horrible shame and guilt that I felt for even daring to, have fun with that like gender bending, I guess, at that young age. But I think it was about 8. So
yeah,
yeah, from very early young age, it's that feeling of shame for like hiding who and what I was. Like, but like if you go on to significant moments as we're growing up and you diary what the next phases are, like so having to hide who and what you are. And it's quite interesting looking at the parallels with the society that I lived in and grew up then. So grew up in the 70s, working class Northeast England. Section
yeah,
28 was a thing. I went to a Roman Catholic school. You couldn't talk
yeah,
about homosexuality or LGBT identities. I read all these stories that were considered by the government to be appropriate for children and everything else, and I still turned out trans and queer and
yeah,
poly. So there you go. Like every rule
yeah,
book that they want me to like abide by, I've kind of gone off on tangent. But it's
yeah,
fascinating, isn't it, how we're so conditioned by our growing up, by the society we live in, by our education and everything else. And then as adult, we unpack everything that's harmful to us and we eventually come to our own identities. Some of us much later, like I didn't transition till I was 39. So,
yeah,
I tried to do everything I could to conform to an identity that was expected of me to follow. I joined the army straight from school, for example. That lasted
yeah.
4.5 years. Like I did a tour of Northern Ireland. Like there's so
Oh
many
wow.
things that I've done
Yeah.
to conform. I met my ex-wife, we got married, I had a child.
Mm.
My daughter and I have a fantastic relationship. It's one of the best things
Yeah.
that's ever happened to me being a parent and a dad. Like I love her
Oh,
dearly. We are just chatting
yeah.
this evening actually before I came on here. So yeah,
Oh,
there are
that's
many
amazing.
things that I've done that I guess with therapy and healing my inner child and everything else, I've come to realize that like, do you know what? Everything I've been through has brought me here. nothing I have done will ever change who and what I am. Therefore, rather than have resentment towards my past, to those who've rejected me, to those who've abandoned me, who don't want me in their life because they can't live with that, oh, I've got a trans person who's in my family, then it's their problem, not mine. I love who I am from a place of self-acceptance, not from ego. So like, I mean, it's quite a radical thing, self-love, isn't it? And being content with who what you are.
Yeah, it's such a journey that we go on as well. I think your story's so inspiring because finding, especially for us in the UK, to have that self-love, like typically, you know what we're like as a nation, like to sort of big ourselves up. We're not a nation that does that enough with ourselves. So sometimes it's difficult to allow ourselves, I think, the space to really champion ourselves, but it's so important, especially when we've grown up in environments where there were so many risks with that authenticity, to be able to go through that journey. And it can be a long journey for a lot of us. It can be many chapters of confusion, chapters that you don't know what's coming next. But when you sort of find your tribe of people and you find within yourself things that start to bring you joy, and like we were saying, start to unpack those layers that were always there, but be able to celebrate them and let go of the preconditioned sort of ideas of fear. There's a lot of joy that comes with that, and a lot of excitement to going on this quest of authenticity, because like we said before, we're not born with these ideas of shame. We're sort of taught them, and when we start to let go of them again, there's a lot that we can find within ourselves, and it unlocks parts of ourselves, I think, that we'd almost forgot were there, but they were always there. They were just waiting to be around an audience that celebrated them. And sometimes that audience needs to be just ourselves at first.
I think it does. Like, I mean, people, those who don't understand our identities, there are a lot of people out there speaking about trans people's experiences and what trans people are. Like, if anyone is watching this and who has those views, like, take from me the amount of soul searching I did and living and trying to be what you all want me to be, and society tells us that we need to be. Like, if I didn't transition when I did, I wouldn't be sitting here in front of you now. And I'm not being dramatic or saying that for any, to cause anyone any distress or anything. I know I wouldn't be, because like whatever I did, it was never, I wasn't fulfilled me personally. And I think that the whole point in life is to connect with yourself in such a way that you have self-love and self-acceptance, and then show others what that looks like and inspire others to live their truth and be there for each other and be kind to others. And I've had so much awful things happen in my life, and to finally be in a position where I can live my truth and be okay with people not liking me.
Which
in and of itself is like
that's a big one, though. I think for so many of us, that sort of, especially I think around our sort of teens and 20s, that fear of someone not liking us and that potential rejection is such a big one. And it's one that we have to really unpack, and it's such a journey that I think we all go on every day, and we're still, always going to be on that journey. But I think that's one of the big fears, that sort of fear of isolation, people not liking me. It's like, we all have that period in our lives where we try and just fit into these groups, and we're trying to sort of navigate. And often I find that many of the friendships of like teens and 20s are very circumstantial of that time. And then when we find our more authentic self, they don't always fit into what's authentic to us now. And so we kind of go through different periods of finding all these. Sometimes this friends, we'll know all the way from school, but sometimes we find a lot later in life, we'll find new friends, people from the community that really resonate with our most authentic self. And it really is like a roller coaster of ups and downs, but I think coming out the other side, there's so much reward that comes with it.
There absolutely is. When I first transitioned, Connor, I went to my then employers, and I didn't want to transition in the town I was currently working in.
Yeah.
One of the main reasons was because my daughter was in primary school. You know, she was struggling enough with the fact that my ex-wife and her had split up, and you know, we had shared care, and it was, you know,
Yeah.
it was going okay, but it was fraught at times. My daughter's always been incredibly emotionally intuitive, and my ex-wife has been very supportive with my transition, actually. And she did say to me, our daughter turned around. I was trying to say it without her saying her name. So my daughter turned around and said to her, Daddy's left us, but he's still not happy. And then when my ex told me that, I was like, it was like a kind of spear to the heart. But I knew what I had to do. And, you know, I'll tell you the story. So like I went to Newcastle with my then girlfriend to watch a football game in this place behind me. Because the plan was to go out in Newcastle fully dressed as Debbie for the first time ever out in a public. And we went to the football, and Newcastle won. We were a great team back then. We still are. But it was in the Mike Ashley era, but we were actually quite a good team when Alan Pardew was manager. So we went out in Newcastle after the match anyway. Yeah, really high spirited. Taxi driver picked us up at the hotel near the airport, dropped us off. And we walked to the one of the queer bars, the Yardbird, and like I remember like walking past all these stag do's and hen do's, and these people were like shouting loads of abuse at me, and I had this scarf on, and I was just twirling it, and I was like egging it up, you know, just that didn't give me monkeys what they were saying to me. And like I look back and I was like, what were you doing? And I remember going to the pedestrian crossing to cross the road to go to the pub, and I stood there, and like it was on red, and there was these two massive big gay bears come up to me, and he goes, "You have my pet?" And I was like, "No, I'm talking shit with yourself." And he goes, "Why? What's wrong?" And I says like, "It's my first time out as me." And it goes, "Oh, you look beautiful, pet." And I was like, "Oh, thank you." And then went into the pub, and we were just like ordered drinks and stuff, and we got chatting and stuff, and like I was sitting there reflecting, Connor, like as the evening progressed, and I was like, for the first time in my life, I wasn't wishing I was something I wasn't. Everyone was using she, her pronouns. They were using my name. And we got back to the hotel room afterwards, like, do you know what? I'm going to do it. I made the decision on the 22nd of April, 2012. On the 13th of July, 2012, I moved to Bournemouth. A new role, new town, new job, no friends. And you know, work were really supportive. I did an induction and everything. And even though I've been with the company for 18 months, because like, you know, there might be certain things about the new location that aren't similar to where you are now. Go and do the induction. Did the induction, and my manager came down to meet me in the reception, and he's like, "Right, you ready to go up onto the floor and meet the team?" I was like, yeah. And like, unbeknownst to me, this office was open plan. There was about 400 people in this big open plan office. And I went to step into the office, and I looked around, and I stepped back, and I was like, I just like, "You want to go for a coffee?" And I just went, and I've likened it to stepping off a plane, because everything I've done after that was the scariest thing I've ever done in my life. Like going to work for a first time as Debbie, like new gender, new town, no friends and stuff. And like for the first few weeks, I really struggled. You know, I tried to align friendships with those in my team and stuff. Like they were being really kind and supportive at work. They've got their own lives. Like there's this new random person who's come onto the team. And I remember at the time, Channel 4 was showing My Transsexual Summer, the documentary with Fox Fisher and all of his housemates then. And when I watched that, I just like I broke down. I was like, I need community. And then I went into the what's it called? The community space in Bournemouth anyway. I think it's called the Rainbow. Anyway, something Rainbow. And then went there and spoke to them, and they put me in touch with a trans group. And when I finally got to go to this trans group for the first time in my life, I was like, they get me. There's nothing as powerful as peer support and knowledge, no matter what you're going through. And like it really, really lifted me, and it started to turn around like how I was seeing my transition and the regret that I was having, because, you know, early transition, I got a lot of abuse in the street, a heck of a lot of abuse. You know, I said at 5 o'clock shadow. You know, it was the height of summer. I was having to wear wigs. You know, going from being male on a Wednesday to then being female and presenting at work the following Monday was, it was weird, and it's probably taken me about a good 4 or 5 years to kind of accept as well how differently I'm treated. So people think, oh yeah, trans women want to transition to get access to women-only spaces. I mean, one, you're wrong, and two, like the privilege I was afforded, I was basically a white cisgender heterosexual male according to societal perceptions of my signature at birth. And then I look at the way that people treat me now and the lack of privilege that I have and the misogyny I have to put up with and the transphobia that I have to put up with. So it's not only misogyny, it's also, you know, people trying to eradicate the rights that I take for granted, well, that I have currently. And I just think, why would someone do that without wanting to go on a journey of self-reflection and understanding who and what they are? And they've probably got a better idea of who they are than you have. So rather than, you know, try and restrict their access to services and take away rights that you take for granted, just let them live. Like, what does it matter to you what anyone does, who they sleep with, who they love, what relationship style they have, as long as, you know, they're a good citizen? Who cares? Just let them get on with it.
It's so true. Yeah, it's like,
that was a bit of a rant there, but
no, I think it's so true, 100%. It's like you just want to be able to allow yourself in these spaces to be able to go on your own journey. And it's like everyone doesn't need to have an opinion about everything all the time. You know, it's just like sometimes you want to say, just let me live, isn't it? It's like, I imagine that's, you know, finding community must have been so important for you at that time, because it's hard enough, you know, moving to the other side of the country, moving down south, but also on a personal level as well, going through that journey of being able to live authentically. And I think everyone could say we reached that point in life where at some point the risk versus the sort of, at some point the risk is no longer going to hold anyone back. It's like, I cannot, you know, I imagine you're like, I can not keep wearing a mask for the sake of other people. It's like, I need to find what's authentic to me and need to find people who I can surround myself with that allow me the space to do that. And however long that journey is, the most important thing is surrounding yourself, isn't it, with those people that are going to be able to relate. You can have a rant to, go on a crazy night out with, whatever you need to do at that point. Those people that are going to be there and just give you that space without always having to have an opinion or an assumption.
I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be about your sexuality or gender identity, Connor, but I think that we are all, as we grow up, trapped by the dogma of people's expectations of what our life should be, whether it's a parental, like, career path or university studies, whatever it is. And it's like, there comes a point when you have to start living life for yourself and not for others. And like I've said this many a time, I'd rather be hated for who I am than loved for who I'm not. I tried everything to get rid of this kind of internal turmoil that I had over being female and being in the wrong fucking body. Sorry, I swore again. Like it's just like I did everything I could to be who I wasn't. Like, you know, from going in the army to like you know, throw myself into a catering career and then, you know, just trying to decompartmentalize all these inner turmoils that I had and push into the back of my mind and forget about them. Lo and behold, they resurfaced again and again and again. It's quite common, that, isn't it? That like people who struggle with identities, whatever that is, like if you don't deal with it, it's going to come back and bite you in the ass. And I think that my dad dying at 57 was a wake-up call. It was about 18 months or so before I transitioned. It was like I started to look at my own mortality and really recognize that like there's not always going to be tomorrow. There's not always going to be one day. Like you if you want to live your life for yourself, then you know there's going to be a time when you're going to have to do it because you're going to run out of tomorrows.
Yeah, 100%. And I think if anything we've learned from this crazy decade, you never know what's coming next. And so it's like we just have to find a way to just live as best we can for ourselves and be able to live our authentic journey with finding, that joy
Mm.
within ourselves and building community and those people around us that really just allow us to go through these different chapters. Because I mean, it's definitely been a wild decade already from COVID to everything going on in the world, but finding that community always is so incredibly important.
I think as well, like perhaps things have moved too quickly for some people, and
Yeah.
there's a fear there that they're seeing the erosion of what they see as the status quo. And if you look at history, language, identities, and everything, they evolve. But I was having this conversation with someone on LinkedIn a few days ago. Like, if you look at, I think colonialism has a lot to answer for. And I think
Yeah.
that if you look at indigenous populations, across the globe, not just in Africa, but in Asia, in Australia, Native Americans and stuff. There wasn't this very binary way of looking at identities and relationships. Quite a
Yeah.
lot of them are, have poly identities, and like the communities all look after each other, and there's less hierarchy going on, and people are allowed to express themselves in whatever way that they want. I mean,
Yeah,
surely
definitely.
someone expressing themselves in joy and bringing a community something that's positive is better than suppressing someone and then being a burden on services and mental health services and everything else because they're not aligned to their truth. Like,
Yeah,
I just don't
definitely.
get the logic. I really don't.
Yeah, 100%. I think for all of us to be able to find, a way for us to express our joy and just live is so important. And it's like we all want, people in the back with their opinions, just let everyone live. And I imagine with your work as well, it's been incredibly important as you sort of transitioned into working with trans about abuse with Manchester trans pride as well. How's sort of that journey been for you as well? Because I know you said you came from, started off in the army, catering background. How did you? I imagine it's been very rewarding as well, right? To start to get to work with the community as well. But how did that sort of begin for you?
Do you know what? I've had two phases of working with the community. So, I mentioned I went to that trans group, and then, I found my
Yeah,
community and realized that a lot of people understood me. Very quickly became apparent that, like, is the age from that group, the oldest was in their 70s, the youngest was 60, and he used to come with his like support worker. So like
yeah,
there was a massive age range, but like what became apparent very quickly that like the people looked to me as a kind of a figure that could lend a friendly ear and support them. So I became a support worker within that group.
yeah,
Found that really rewarding, and then we had a trans day of like a trans awareness week in Bournemouth, the very first one that they'd
yeah,
had. Over the Rainbow was the name of that charity. I knew it would come to me.
yeah,
So we had a trans awareness week in Bournemouth, the very first one. And it was brilliant. We had a photography exhibition at the end of it and a big event and stuff. And then like after about 18 months, I just like for various reasons, that group kind of just dissolved a bit. And then we set up our own charity called Community in 2016. That's still going with my friends
yeah,
down there. Kind of social support for trans and non-binary people. But when I moved away from Bournemouth in 2017 up to the Northwest, after winning an award to do with my insurance career, I was just, I was afforded the opportunity to not be so proactive in the community spaces anymore and focus on my career. Um,
yeah,
and I'll be honest, I took it. You can't be fighting the fight the whole time. You need to kind of build up your resilience and take a step back.
yeah,
Radical self-care is a thing. But yeah, I was in a role in 2023 and I wasn't enjoying it at all. And then I
yeah,
saw my partner, Vicky, she shared this role on her LinkedIn, and something had gone on at work, and I went on LinkedIn, like in a, having it, and then
yeah,
this post
yeah.
looked up, and I was like, oh, that looks interesting. So like I went through, and it's like that's my dream job. I have no qualifications to do this role at all, other than you know, I'm a trans woman. It's like, you know what, I'm going to go for it. I took a punt. And, you know, during the interview process, you know, it was one of those ones where I give an example of a time when you've experienced such and such, and like we went through the whole of that interview process, but like you can teach someone the hard skills, the soft skills. You can teach someone how to do a role, like to how to support victims of domestic violence, which is, you know, trans abuse. Leading that project is what I do now. So I've been trained I'm a trained IDVA. I can work with perpetrators of domestic abuse as well. So I've done some training to work with them, people who cause harm as well. You can teach someone that. You can't teach someone the morality. You can't teach someone the interpersonal skills and stuff. You've either got it or you haven't. It's been serendipitous coming into this role, if I'm honest with you, because I feel like all the struggles I've been through, both pre and post transition, have led me up to having the skills I need for this role. I don't know everything. I never will. That's not what I mean. I just think that having a wide understanding of the challenges the trans community faces lends itself to me being well informed to do this role. You know, I see every day as a privilege. The work that I get to do, like writing Live Free, for example, the world's first online domestic abuse recovery program for trans and non-binary people, that is free until Trans Day Visibility. Check out our website for more details. You know, having the support system around me and the training and the space and the capacity to grow into the role and do community mapping, and then to build up these multi-agency collaborations and events and stuff. It's like, pinch me. I feel like I'm going to wake up one day and I'm going to be in my whole life and I'm going to be like, no. But yeah, I see each day as a privilege, and to be able to give something back to my community as well, the community that supported me when I was struggling, it's not lost on me at all. And one of the things I love about my work, I mean, it's twofold, because I do work with clients. I also do work around strategic development of trans abuse and stuff, and, you know, trying to grow it as its own kind of charity. But when I connect with someone in the community and they thank me and they tell me that connecting with someone in the community who just gets them, and who understands that their intersectional challenges, and they don't have to come and try and, I don't know if you found this, Connor, as a gay man, but like sometimes when you go in to seek professional help and you have to find yourself in the role of reluctant educator, because the person that you are going to help for is more interested in learning more about your identity than they are about giving you the support that you've gone there for. To be able to be in a privileged position for trans people to come to me for domestic abuse support and not have to do that, because I'm not saying I don't understand everything about their journey, but I have a deeper understanding than someone who isn't. And it's never lost on me. It's an absolute privilege, and to be able to grow something from the ground up with the support of the senior team that I have around me is just, it's amazing. And but everyone at that organization, at my CWA, I'm going to shout you out now. You're all incredible. Like, dream life, pinch me.
I think that's amazing, though,
because the partner's been a big part of that as well. She is absolutely incredible, you know, kind of. So when I met her, I was in a relationship with someone else, but I've come to polyamory in the last like 18 months or so as well, and that has been a steep learning curve, as well as, you know, training to be a counselor and learning all about domestic abuse and stuff. But like, I look at who I am now. I've literally unpacked every single bit of conditioning that I've had from a young age, and I now have a life that fits me. Like everything all of a sudden just makes sense.
That's amazing. I think you can see as well how much joy that you radiate.
Really?
I think as well, like when you find, like, isn't it funny how that role just came just at the right time? Like you're scrolling and you're just seeing what's out there, and then it spoke to you, and then look at where you are now. And it's like you said, sometimes when we go into jobs, we never know anything, but if you've got that, what people need, that empathy and that ability to really be able to sit with people in a vulnerable moment and just hear them, I think it's so important, because all the other skills come in time, and having something that really speaks to you, and it's like that came just at the perfect moment, and look at where you are now.
It's not lost on me. Like, you know, that the fact that our CEO has looked at the service, recognized the fact that we don't have many people from marginalized communities coming into the service, done some research around those communities, got funding from the National Lottery to be able to run like a thing called the Lighthouse Project, which is essentially looking at engaging marginalized communities with domestic abuse services, because there tends to be a higher prevalence of domestic abuse, but fewer engage. So it's trying to understand why, and then doing the projects such as trans without abuse to hopefully increase awareness around domestic abuse experiences for trans and non-binary people, because they are different to cisgender people's experiences, but also giving them the confidence to be able to come to a service that's inclusive of their needs by volition of the fact that it's run by a trans person. And, you know, has training and materials that's developed with them in mind. I think it's, like I keep saying, pinch me. And then to have a partner who's amazingly, incredibly supportive, and, you know, have the partner as well. He's incredibly supportive of me. So like my chosen family to me are as supportive as any family would be. And especially at this moment in time with all the stuff that's going on in the world, I get overwhelmed. Like I had supervision with my team leader last week, and I broke down in tears, and she was crying because I was crying. It's like, it's tough. It really is. But to know that you have support and people there who were there for you as a trans person is just, it's beautiful. Like even you here now, Connor, having this conversation with me, that's that community, you know, like it's absolutely vital. And I think we shouldn't lose sight of that, you know, when we're looking at removing ourselves from platforms and stuff. I think we have to think about what we lose as well as what we gain. You know, you can mute people, you can block them. You know, the malicious communications are still in there. There is an act there to protect us. And currently, the Equality Act 2010 in the UK protects us. I think it's easy to focus on the negative rather than remember what protections we do have. And like, it's all about just empowering each other and lift each other up and just being there for each other.
100%. And like you said about that chosen family, it's so important to us to just surround ourselves with those people that just get us, that we can have, you know, whether it's a laugh, a rant, they can check us when they need to, when we need to be told, and just build those people around us. And I think even, you know, even online communities like LinkedIn, a lot of the spaces like with the LGBTQ plus networks and how that's grown, even since I only started using LinkedIn maybe 2 years ago. I was very late to it, but just seeing that and how you can just reach people across the world, and someone will find something you talk about and it speaks to them, and then they connect with you. I think it's incredible how our authenticity can now put us with people that find us in ways that they just connect with our stories and really want to reach out. And I encourage, you know, anyone listening to this episode, if they've got any questions, for you to, you know, just drop you a message and to reach out. For anyone who has any queries that's listening to this podcast, where would you say is the best place that they can reach you?
It depends what it's about. If it's on LinkedIn, by all means, send me a message. Be nice.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to get anywhere if you don't. If it's to do with domestic abuse, then you can reach out to us with the transwithoutaBuse.org.uk. But, you know you're going to get a response from someone who is believes you and is there for you, kind of thing.
For sure.
I
think it's been amazing as well to hear your story. Like I said, there's so much joy that radiates from you, and I think, you know, like we said at the beginning, being able to unpack those layers and let go of a lot of that fear and shame, and whether it's that fear of not being liked, unlocking parts of our personality that we kind of dim down. There's such a joy in that, finding chosen family as well. And I think, you know, it's like we never stop learning.
We don't. I think that's been the final piece of the puzzle. Like, I've finally landed a job that I was meant to do. I honestly think I was born to do this role, and it, like, you know, I give it 100% every single day. And then I think about the relationship that I have with my partner Vicky. Like, all those barriers that I put up from previous relationships have just like gone. She gives me this safe space where I can just be vulnerable and be myself and not have to hide anything. You know, we talk about, I think that's one of the beautiful things about polyamory, is that you're constantly checking in with each other and discussing what your boundaries are and how things are changing, and if the other persons are okay, and if everyone else connected is okay. And actually, because of that constant level of communication, like, there's no filling in the gaps. And I think, you know, if anyone could take anything from polyamory into monogamy, it's like, you know, talk, don't fill in the gaps.
Yeah,
if you want to talk about something, you know, bring it to the table. Don't be afraid of having discussions around relationships, because, you know, that, you know, she is my rock. She's my lighthouse in the storm. Absolutely. Without her in the last 18 months, God knows where I'd be. But it's the role. And then I think, you know, my mum died a few years ago. The last thing she said to me was, don't bother turning up my funeral like that, as Debbie. And I said to her, I'm going to go before I say something I'll regret. Didn't speak to her again before she died. And the family didn't want me at the funeral. And I literally met Vicky a week before she died. If that's not serendipity, I don't know what is. But like, to have her there and then go through therapy and do some inner child work and the healing that comes from going on that journey, it's just like, it's weird how 2023 was an utter shit show in terms of like my world colliding, nearly had a nervous breakdown, but actually things coming together at the right time and when they needed to. And then, flying ever since.
I think it's incredible, the story that you've been on, all the different chapters as well, if you think, that make up your diary up until now, and all the future chapters to come.
Connor, like, I've given you such a snippet. So much. Honestly, as I was saying to you earlier, we have conversations at work, and I feel like Nessa sometimes, like the places I've worked, the people I've met and stuff, and it's just like, I just think there's a certain joy in connection in human stories, and like that's why I do it. It's not like, oh yeah, look what I've done, I'm brilliant. No, it's none of that. It's like just sharing and having that connection with people. I think the most, if I could leave anyone inspired by this podcast, and, you know, if it touches one person, then brilliant, job done. But like, the most important relationship you will ever have is the one with yourself. So treat yourself with kindness and with compassion and with self-love, like, and understand, like, you were born to be different. Like, originals are way cooler. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, you know, finding that relationship with ourselves is so important. And as you look kind of to the year ahead, have you got any specific goals that you sort of setting for yourself? Anything that you're sort of manifesting for the year ahead?
More love. Not from, you know, well, to enjoy the relationship that I have, to just be happy. I think joy comes from doing the things that are aligned to yourself. I think one of the things that I will start doing more of, though, is radical self-care as well. You can be aware of what's going on for your community and not take on that weight of that responsibility of having, I can be one voice and I can do things to support my community when they're struggling. But I think it's important to understand when you have to step back, because if you try and take on the world, you're not going to win. You're just going to become overwhelmed and burned out, and then no use to yourself, never mind anyone else. So I think it's important, and my partner Vicky does try and instill this in me to do radical self-care as well. You can't be everything for everyone, and sometimes you have to pull down your own oxygen mask.
Yeah, 100%. I think sometimes we all reach that point of just being a little bit overwhelmed and burnout, and it's important to allow yourself that space to rest or take a step back and not have that guilt, so that you can come back 100%. Because I think we've all been at those points in our life where we just get a little bit overwhelmed, but there's that fear, isn't there, of pulling back and the risk with that. But you have to listen to your body. Like, I tell myself every day, I have to listen. If I need a rest, I need to allow myself that space. It's so important to not, and I think so many of us associate, you know, taking a step back or whatever we're working on with that guilt, letting go of that guilt and giving us that space to recharge.
I mean, nothing's forever, and it's. I'm not being flippant in saying that, especially someone struggling at the moment. Like, I know how hard it can be to struggle. I don't know your struggle, but, you know, keep going. It you know, things do get better, and like, even the political unrest that's going on in the world at the moment. It's cyclical, like things come and go, and hopefully this will go quicker than it's
for sure.
But yeah, I just want to live my life and be happy. That's it. It's not much to ask.
That's all we can do, isn't it? It's just
What about you,
enjoyment.
What's your plan for next year?
I think for me, I just as well like manifest for myself just in friendships, relationships in general, just a lot more. I've been finding that joy again and authenticity. I think, like many people, I had that experience through COVID where I just sort of struggled with mental health and didn't know how to find. I felt like I'd sort of lost a bit of that spark. And what I've been trying to do over the last year is do all the things that sort of reignite that again. And even if it's small things like just an hour hike with some 90s house music on to boost my energy, or whatever it is, reconnecting with friends that I hadn't seen before I moved to Spain, like just the little things that I can do for my mental health. And it's helped a lot on my own journey, because I think many of us can relate that when COVID sort of hit, we suddenly had to process a lot of trauma and things mental health wise that none of us have fully equipped to deal with. But what we can do is lean on each other and find that community. And so that's very important for me as the year continues to continue to push myself out there and doing things that I know are going to improve my mental health, whether it's the smallest step that normally last year or the year before I would have been like, oh, I'll just put that off, giving myself a break, going to see that friend that I've not seen in a few months or years even, just all those things that I can do. I think that's so important. And, continuing to have these conversations, I think is fantastic as well. It's so great that through this podcast, you get to meet people in the community. And, you've allowed me to, on this podcast, share, your story. I think it's amazing that with this podcast, it connects me with so many wonderful individuals like yourself, and the power of the connection that we can get from that.
Oh, thank you. I think as well, anyone who's gone on a journey of transition, change, or something that's very different, new, whatever you want to, however you want to word it, like we get sometimes so focused on the goal that we forget to enjoy the process of becoming the person we've always been meant to be. Like, and I say this to some clients that I work with, like it's called transition, not switch. If it was just a switch that you flicked and you had everything that you wanted, it would be overwhelming. You couldn't cope. I think one of the beauties of my transition kind of over the last 13 years is being able to enjoy becoming the woman I've always identified as and wanted to be. And it's probably only in the last 18 months that I've accepted who I am as well. Isn't that hard?
Yeah, I think it's so important, like, to find that place to be present, because we're always so busy with things for the future and what we want to happen, that sometimes we just need to allow ourselves to find that joy in the present. And it's easy to get caught up in life, so much happening, but I think being present is the most important thing that we can give ourselves.
If I can give you a quote from one of my daughter's favorite films when she was growing up, Kung Fu Panda, I think Master 𝐓𝐴 says it to him. He says, "The past is history, now is the past is history, the future is a mystery, now is a gift. That's why it's called the present."
Oh yeah, that's a great quote, isn't it? Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's amazing. And well, thank you so much, Debbie, for coming on the podcast today. It's been amazing to hear your story and more about your work as well. I shall put all the links in the bio and on LinkedIn and here on YouTube. So thank you so much today for joining me.
You're very welcome. And anytime you want me on as a guest again to catch up and talk about what's been going on, I'd love to take part, Connor. Good luck with everything. And I hope you get that job in Madrid soon.
Yes, thanks so much. And to everyone that's tuned into the Queerness Diaries this week, thank you. I will put those links in the comments, so make sure you go to Debbie's LinkedIn, and also I will make sure I put for Trans Without Abuse. Make sure you follow the link for that. So we'll be back next week with another episode. So thank you so much.